talk about what's going on with Botham Jean. This is a guy who was in his apartment. He just hanging out, and a cop. She claims she was disoriented. Somehow got into his apartment, and apparently, according to her, then saw this interloper in her apartment. Yeah, made the proper police, calls to I don't know what, and then shot this guy dead. And now, apparently, the Dallas Police Department is coming out with the idea that the guy had some pot in his apartment. Here is I just want to play this clip of Botham Jean's lawyers, I guess lawyers of the family, responding to the idea that there was a warrant looking for drugs in this guy's apartment who was a victim of a cop shooting an off-duty cop. Here it is.
During our 4 o'clock newscast, there was a new development in this case about marijuana found in Mr. Jean's apartment. Joining me right now are the legal team for the Jean family who want to make a statement about that. Lee Merritt?
No, so we had a chance to look at the initial warrant that was signed by Judge Birmingham, and it was specifically looking for narcotics in Mr. Jean's house. For me and for the legal team, for the family, it highlights just sort of the nefarious nature of their investigation. They went in with the intent to look for some sort of criminal justification for the victim. And it's a pattern that we've seen before. It's a pattern of we have a victim, we have a cop who clearly did something wrong, and instead of investigating the homicide, instead of going into her apartment and seeing what they can find, instead of collecting evidence relevant for the homicide investigation, they went out specifically looking for ways to tarnish the image of this young man. And it's even more tragic that the day that information is being released is the day that we've designed to remember who Botham was and what he meant to this community.
I mean, this is insane. I've never heard of going into a victim's apartment in a supposed accidental shooting, right? And looking and specifically getting a warrant to look for drugs. That's insane.
But it is. Okay, let me start there. It's absolutely insane. And I believe that was Lee Merritt, the attorney for the family. And the reason I bring up his name is because he's been on a lot of other cases that have this type of MO. And the MO is kill a black person, vilify them after you kill them, right? Whether it doesn't matter the scenario. I had a friend, Corey Jones, who was killed by a police officer in Palm Beach Lakes about 3 years ago. And immediately they started to vilify him. Thankfully, I had connections with Sean King, who was able to get Corey's story out, who he really was, before the police department and whoever they hire, whatever PR firms they hire, Fraternal Order of Police, whoever gets involved to do this spin, it's consistently done no matter the circumstance. But this one is uniquely disgusting in that this guy did absolutely nothing wrong. Nothing. He was at home. And so now they've gone one step further and said, not only will we vilify you when there's questionable circumstances, we will vilify you when there's no question about it that you were absolutely innocent and had nothing to do with your own murder.
This comes, this latest development comes about a day or so after, I guess there was a poll that showed something like 70% of the country thinks it's legit for football players to take a knee during the anthem. I mean, this is why Kaepernick was taking a knee. Like, right. I mean, like this type of stuff, like the idea, like the way that we're going to investigate this shooting. I mean, they're charging her with manslaughter. Yeah. So they clearly, it's one thing if it's like they found in her apartment, like, stores of drugs and wanted to see if this was part of like a drug deal gone bad or something like that. But there's no implication of that whatsoever. They're saying this was an accident on her part, and they go and look for it's amazing to me. And there's been people who've been getting on the Dallas Morning News apparently too, who have been sort of like swallowing this hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. So I mean, think about it like this. What have we heard about the character of this officer, the person who's actually the one who killed Botham Jean. We've heard nothing really about her, except that it took 3 days for them to finally arrest her and to charge her. And we haven't heard anything about any toxicology report from her body. What does she have in her system? Even though the mugshot looks like she was clearly under the influence of something. But we're still in the court of public opinion, which is what matters for any potential grand jury. The court of public opinion absolutely matters. We haven't heard anything about her character, her past. Nothing. Instead, what we've heard is that she possibly gave out some lawful commands and that he didn't abide by them. Well, who actually is going to abide by a stranger's command when they bust into your apartment? That's not reasonable or logical. But this is how it plays out, and I think this is the most extreme example. It's so extreme. I have to give Ben Shapiro some props, because he honestly didn't understand why this was even an issue or why they would bring this up in a sarcastic tweet that he sent out. He actually was on the right side of it. But it took this extreme example for us to see how ridiculous this is. Yet the MO, the pattern, is consistently the same no matter what the circumstances, whether it's 12-year-old Tamir Rice or whether it was 26-year-old Botham Jean.
It's nuts. People should be paying attention to this, because what's going on there is just, it's out of control.